Welcome to the Tradie Wife Life podcast, brought to you by Tradies in Business, where we talk to tradie wives about their goals, their challenges, their hopes and dreams, and how their trade business can help with that. Hello, listeners, and welcome to Tradie Wife Life. I am about to kick off on another real tradie wife story. That sounds quite ridiculous, although if there was champagne involved and some cat fighting, I think we'd have a great time like the TV show. Not that I think Lara and I are going to go down that street. I am joined today by one of our real tradie wives, Lara Deans. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having me, Nicole. It's great.
Absolute pleasure. Lara, why don't we start a little differently today, and I'll get you to tell me how you came to be a tradie wife, because your story is actually quite funny, particularly because I know your husband. But tell us a little bit about how you came to be working alongside Shane.
Well, I think like most tradie wives, I probably fell into it.
Mm-hmm.
I have quite a varied background professionally. I'm a trained social worker. I've done lots of event management and lots of fundraising. So my skills are very much systems and process based. Now, young Shane, my beautiful tradie husband, is very good at what he does physically and not so good at business things. So he would often come to me and go, I've got to type an invoice. Here's my pen and scrap piece of paper. Can you make it look pretty and send it to someone? So, yeah, I did that at night time, and then we had a couple of kids, and then it just kind of built bigger and bigger as we went along, and I was doing more and more work at night until we decided that I'm just going to be the tradie wife. Quit my job and now work from my lounge room, supporting the business side of what it is that Shane does physically, I guess.
Yeah, I really I'm going to pull you right up right there, Lara. You've thrown open the door for me, and I can run into the gauntlet with you. I think it's really typical, the languaging you just used. You use the word just. I'm just going to be the tradie wife. And as I know you already know, so I'm probably leading you down the garden path, to be honest. I know that you know it's so much more than that. Not only are you just the tradie wife, you're actually steamrolling through and running the business alongside Shane. How do you feel about that when I say it back to you, though?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do know that is the case. And when people ask me, what do? I say I run a building company.
Yes.
So I don't say I do my husband's books or I'm just a stay-at-home mum. I run a building company, and I think I do.
Yes, you. Oh, hell, you do. I know even Shane would agree with that very positively. Shane is one of those amazing trades. So I grew up, our listeners know Dad's a plasterer, and I was surrounded by tradies all of my life. And I grew up with these incredible tradies that were often multi-skilled. So they often did what Shane has done, which I find to be quite rare. It's pretty rare I come across it. I have a builder husband who can do just about everything. He is not licensed to do things like plumbing and roofing like Shane is, and we'll get to what he can do in a moment. And he was brought up in a time where builders were builders. They weren't carpenters that then are builders. You know, there's quite a few different types of builders now, very different. Shane has taken that to the 10th degree, as we both know Shane does, because he's quite the perfectionist in what he does. Shane started his career, and correct me if I get this wrong, Lara, as a carpenter and joiner. And once he completed that a midlife crisis, he decided he wanted to be a plumber. So he did a plumbing apprenticeship, and he's just completed his roofing exam. So he is a qualified roofer as well, which is very rare for a plumber to be multi-skilled the way that he is on its own, let alone also have that dual background then of being a carpenter, all to culminate now as a builder, like a proper real builder, the way I see them to be. Sorry for all the other builders out there that were carpenters only. But I find it just amazing that, well, first of all, that takes a lot of fortitude to put in the time and the effort to learn the skills required for all of those tasks. And all of those individually are they're hard trades. They're not easy trades. I don't think there's any easy trade, to be fair. And it's a lot of time that needs to be invested to learn those trades. What is it that drives Shane to do this?
I think it's his want of perfection. He wants to deliver a job to a customer that he would be happy to receive himself. He's always said that I'll build your house like I'm building my house. And, you know, over the years, he's seen some pretty terrible jobs come out. So, you know, he wants to learn and make himself better so that his jobs can be better.
That's pretty common, I think, in the trades, you know, the wanting things to be better. And I think that drives a lot of our tradiepreneurs in our community. We see lots of a very similar attitude. Given that Shane, though, really pushes hard for that level of perfection with what he's working on, I think it might surprise people looking from the outside in that the business stuff hasn't come second nature to Shane.
Absolutely not. He is as good as he is on the tools. He's terrible with the business side of things. So we make a good team.
Yes.
Which is great. He has always said he's technologically challenged to the point where he's not allowed to send emails. He's only allowed to send emails to me so that they get vetted and then sent out into the public. He can barely send a text message. He can't use ServiceMate. You know, ask him to use a hammer drill or a nail gun. Absolutely, he could do it, one in each hand. Ask him to send a text message, not a chance. So in terms of having a successful business, could he do it on his own? No, he could not. Sorry. Could I do it on my own? No, I could not, obviously, because I can't use a nail gun. So, yeah, we become a team that works together to come up with the best program that we can have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, again, I don't think it's uncommon, and you two have a real set of complementary skills that, you know, in other partnerships that I have observed, we don't always have those complementary skills. Sometimes we have those kind of skills that butt up against each other and cause more friction than answers. But in your case, particularly with skills like social working, means that you can be extremely diplomatic and have tough conversations and you don't shy away from them. And I've experienced that with you. You're very direct. You can get to where you need to be without the other stuff getting in the way, which has been a fantastic assistance for Shane, as far as I see. And then your event planning. Well, event planning is no different than planning out a Gantt chart, which we both know has been a struggle at times for Shane. But, you know, those skills are so transferable. And I think that many of us women, as we step into just helping out our tradies, which is generally where we all start, and I don't know any tradie wife yet that grew up just wanting to be a tradie wife. Generally, they've had some sense of a career first, but those skills are incredibly transferable. As I said, event planning, the innate understanding of how long something's going to take, how do I get somebody in the right place at the right time, the level of communication that goes with that, that's extremely important for you to then help Shane plan out what the job looks like so that you can then organize it, because it's pretty well what's happening for you guys, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And in the past, Shane's been very good at working reactively on one job at a time. As our business has grown and we're working on more than one job, which requires a lot more foresight and planning, that's where my skill has really come to the fore and where I've really been able to shine to help him with, well, if we do this on one side at one job, what does that mean for the other job? And what have we got coming in the next couple of weeks that needs to be organised now rather than waiting until the crane arrives on site? So most of my skills that I have learnt in my previous non-tradie wife life, as well as skills that I have learnt being a mum, are very transferable and have meant that I've been able to still utilise things that I am good at in a job that I fell into.
Yes, we do. I think negotiation skills must have been right up the top of your list. That has to, well, perhaps it comes as much from being a mum as it comes from being a social worker.
Yeah.
Because let's call it for what it is. We love Shane dearly, and some of this is very frustrating for Shane when we're trying to work through the change that's required to create business solutions instead of those reactive solutions you were talking about. What sort of areas have you and Shane really perhaps not come to blows, but maybe what causes the two of you the most frustration in trying to run this business together?
I think he feels a bit frustrated that I don't understand how a building site can work.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel a bit frustrated because I like things planned out.
Yes.
And he doesn't. So we're both sort of working at opposite ends of the planning spectrum, and finding a middle ground for us is often very difficult.
I think it can be challenging for most of us, and something I don't see impact you guys quite as much as I certainly see with many of the other couples that we work with is the relationship dynamics getting in the way of the business. It's very typical, unfortunately, that when we're working together as a couple and we're a couple, that we become hurt by what the other person is saying when that's not the intention at all. And that gets in the way of finding those results. That's not something I see very often of you guys. What I see is a deep commitment from each of you to find the best solution, but also to embrace the opportunity for growth, even though I know that that can be a bit confronting for Shane, particularly at times, because we're asking, Shane is having to do, I guess, almost the most changing, or he's having to be the most open to change so that we can set these systems in place that are going to create better solutions for him longer term. What do you think has been the key for Shane in, I guess, becoming comfortable with understanding that some of this needs to change and then being open to that change?
So we're in Melbourne. We live in Melbourne. Our business is in Melbourne. As everybody knows, we had quite a few years of lockdown and some real hard COVID times. And that pressure that Shane was getting almost broke him. And it was at that point when he realised, I can't do this business thing on my own. I certainly can't do the paperwork on my own, and I need help. So that's where we came along, and we've joined with TIV. But what that also meant for us was that Shane needed to be open to whatever was going to be said. I knew as well that not everything that we did was perfect, and that there was a lot of things that needed to change. But I think we were both at such a low point of our business and our lives, and, COVID going on, that we needed to be open to that change. And we knew that we just needed someone to hold our hands and give us a little bit of a push sometimes, and that we weren't going to get any better, or it wasn't going to get any easier if we weren't willing to do the work and create the change that was needed.
I still remember, I shared you with this off air, I still remember the first time we met you and Shane. So you and I had done a bit of talking beforehand. We'd connected on Facebook and had a bit of to and fro. And then you brought Shane along to one of our events in Melbourne, one of our free events that were running, oh gosh, was it last year or the year before? I can't even recall now. And I can recall Shane in that session was like a sponge. And it's not often when we have husbands and wives come, generally the husbands are feeling a bit put out, or does this mean everyone's going to say I'm doing the wrong thing? Or, it feels like a bit of pressure to them. By the end of it, they tend to be a little more open-minded and relaxed and think, oh, okay, there's so much more I could be doing. And look at all of these other people that feel like I do. Where Shane walked in, he was immediately like a sponge, just soaking up all the information. I can remember there was a look of shock across his face at one point in time. I can't even remember what it was about now, though I can really distinctly recall the look of shock on his face. And you guys sat at a great table with a couple of our other clients and had a good chat. But I was really impressed by his openness and willingness to change. And it's not always like that. Often we have wives dragging their husbands along to give it a go for the first time because they don't know what to expect. They feel like it's going to be uncomfortable. And what I found with Shane is he's actually become a real leader amongst the men in the way he is open and willing, not just with Warwick and I, but with the men in our community. He's quite okay to be vulnerable about things that are causing him frustration or anger or making him upset. Is that Shane naturally, or is that Shane that's beginning to evolve with, I guess, age and experience?
I think this is Shane beginning to evolve. He's not a natural open sharer, not even with me, really. However, I think he's found himself a community where he feels supported, when he has other people that understand what he's going through, that have been there and done that before, which leads him to feel safe, I guess. We have a couple of tradie friends. We have a couple of people who run businesses. The people who run the businesses generally, though, are much bigger businesses, and you need to be a little bit of a mongrel to run a huge business. He doesn't want to do that. And the people that we know that are tradies, are subbies, or they're working for the same builder all the time, so they don't have the business worries and they don't have the employee worries, and they just say, well, just don't work on Saturday and it'll all be fine. However, being able to see that there's a group of people that do work like Shane has allowed him to really open up, and get a lot of emotional support, get a lot of therapy, if you would call it that, from the group alone, rather than any psychologist that we could be paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars to.
Yeah, there's a lot of power in finding a group of people that understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it is my favorite thing about what we do is the community that we have and the way they respond to one another when there's a problem or issue or something's being shared. It's always with support. I love it. I'm keen to understand maybe all of the changes you've seen in Shane in the last 12 months, because they have been immense, as you and I both know. But perhaps you could share with our listeners what sort of things he's had to work on to change over the last 12 months.
Him work on changing himself. Yeah, he's had to learn that he can do things, and that he needs to have more faith in his ability to do things. He can use technology.
Yes, he can.
He was very put off by having to do Zoom meetings all the time with TIB, and actually really embraced it. And now, gets on from site using his phone, and things like that. So he's really learning that if he does things and sees a result, that he can see the benefit in those kind of changes that he's making now. Takes him a long time to come around to it, but he gets there eventually. And yeah, that's his biggest change, I think.
Yeah, I my favorite change for me with Shane has been it probably goes back to that willingness to share again. And now he's in a part of the program where he has access to a tool where he can speak to Warwick and I any time of the day, and he does. We love Shane. He's also a very funny man, let me tell you. So Brown Trout, that's our nickname for Shane, will often send through a message, and he just gives us an update on how his day's going. It blows me away, the vulnerability that he is now able to show. And I always felt Shane was quite comfortable with being vulnerable, and he has really taken that and expanded on it tenfold, so that now, if he's having a tough day, he'll just pick up the app and talk to us. So, and you can almost hear it clicking into place as he's talking it through. He's finding his own solutions because his headspace has just changed that space of solution finding instead of getting really bogged down in the problem, which unfortunately we see quite frequently, that propensity to get bogged and stuck. Whereas Shane, sure, we all have our moments still, and he still has times where nothing's going his way and it's really frustrating for him. However, he's okay with putting his hand up and saying, look, this isn't working out. I don't know what's going wrong. Talk it through. Suddenly he can remember all of the strategies we've spoken about previously, and he'll throw them into the middle of the conversation. Could be coaching himself at this point in time, I might like to say. And so he will throw those in at random times and sort of come to that point of clarity as he works through. So that's my favorite for Shane. He's really that vulnerability in the way he's embraced that. Lara, what have you enjoyed about what those changes have then meant for how you can be impactful within your own role in the business?
Well, I think I'm able to lead the team a lot more now than I was. Previously, I was more the secretary, I suppose. And being able to make those changes that we've made has meant that I've actually been able to be more of a leader. The boys will approach me with problems. They have no problem ringing me to say, I need this or I need that. So they're seeing me as, an integral part of the business. And the boss, as opposed to Shane's wife.
Yeah.
What I've liked about it is our crew is quite young. So I've been able to use my social working skills that, is part of the core of who I am, to really support them in their growth, and what they're learning, and some of the issues that they're having, which at times has been very frustrating, especially for Shane when he has said, just get back on the shovel and stop worrying about it. For me to be able to step in and help them through, I think is one of the reasons why our boys are all really happy.
I can see that too. Lara, what brings you, and you may have already answered this, but, I don't really like bookwork. I can't stand data entry. I like helping people. I like being impactful in the business. I don't like taking that more passive role, I guess. And one of my big fears when I gave up a hugely it was a big position in pharmacy, and it was very fast paced, and I was responsible for a lot of people and multi-million-dollar deals, and it felt very important to me at the time. When I gave it up to go and work alongside my builder, I worried that I wouldn't find the fulfillment that I required to enjoy what I was doing every day. And yet what I see with people like yourself and many of the women that we work with, nothing could be further from the truth. However, I think it surprises people how we find our fulfillment. I'd love you to share how you are fulfilled by working within your business, running your business.
I love seeing the results. So as much as I whinge about having to process the receipts, when I can hit go on the reconciliation and it all balances and looks great, that's amazing. I love seeing the results of the hard work. I like seeing the result of the jobs that Shane's doing as well, and knowing that I was a part of bringing that real happiness to someone when they're getting their dream home. And I love seeing our young staff become good, decent, well-skilled tradesmen. That's the other thing that I really like about what we do.
I love that that's a focus.
I'm the boss, so I don't have anybody to answer to. So
no, it's not a bad feeling, really, is it? And you've got a sign on your desk that proves that you're the boss. So let's not let anyone forget that. I'd really like to highlight that, actually. You and I spoke off air. I know that it's a real focus for Shane to build very well equipped and skilled tradesmen. That's the focus for him. So I'd like to talk about that. And I'd also like to pat you on the back. I feel like it's just as important to you that you're looking even further than that. Well, what can we do collaboratively to contribute to them being well-skilled young men, in this case, all the people you're working with are young men. So it's not just about the trade for you, it's also about their life and helping them to be well-skilled in their lives. So could you share with us, firstly, this piece about how you started employing and why you started employing, and then maybe talk to the kind of things that you're both doing collaboratively for your team to ensure that they're, eventually going to leave you as very well-skilled men.
Okay, that's a lot. You might have to remind me if I lose my train of thought.
I'll come you back if we need to.
Look, we started employing people because obviously we had a lot of work. Shane was struggling to get through what needed to be done without a second pair of hands. However, he was reluctant to employ a skilled person or a subcontractor because he takes such pride in what it is that he likes to produce. So I suggested to him, well, if you don't want to be fixing someone else's mistakes and you don't want someone dragging down your name, why don't we start with apprentices? So he decided, that's a great idea. We picked up an apprentice who was a friend of a friend. He was a young fellow who I think he might not have completed year 10, very young. But it meant that Shane was able to mould him into a fantastic tradesman who came out. He was actually a plumbing apprentice. He came out of his apprenticeship as a plumber, obviously, and a carpenter. Because of the works that we were doing, he was able to learn 2 lots of skills. He was very good. And his finishes, like all our staff, is amazing. So I say all that because not only has Shane made them great skilled tradesmen, but I have ridden them to make sure, is that a word? To make sure that they've filled out their diaries. They have signed in and out. They've taken copious notes. They take lots of before and after photos. They're very friendly with the clients. All those things that make them not only great tradespeople, but great business owners themselves. So if they decide when they get to 30 that they want to go out on their own and run their business, they've got those skills to fall back on. I've waffled a bit. However, Shane was also sick of seeing sort of one-trick ponies who could, hang a door brilliantly but couldn't install a window. And, a lot of the volume builds have trades that come in to do a quick job, not a good job. And he wanted to see good jobs coming out of the industry, so that all these bad names that tradies get about charging too much and doing a terrible job, he wanted to change that one apprentice at a time. Now we have 5.
It's an awful lot of people to look after.
It's a lot of people to look after, one at a time, but they're all very good at what they do.
Yeah, it's really rare to have a focus immediately of developing them as business owners. I think we're brought up in the trades, unfortunately, to feel that fear. And there's the fear of, well, if I spend all this time and money and effort teaching them how to be great business owners, they're just going to go off and do it on their own. And when challenged with the thought of, well, what if you don't? What if you don't invest that time? What if you don't invest the money and the resources and whatever it takes to create great, skilled people? What are you going to get in the outcome? Do you think they're going to hang around longer just because they feel like they can't go anywhere? Or do you think they're going to seek it out somewhere else and perhaps even leave you earlier? So it is a rare headspace, I think, to be doing that right from the beginning. And I feel like that is a combination between the two of you, in that Shane wants really well-skilled tradespeople and you're invested in their outcome coming from that social worker background, which is really rare. And I wish we could see more business owners doing the same. So I hope there's a few that are listening today and think, maybe I could do a bit of that myself. Lara, what's next for you guys? What sort of things are you working on over the next 12 months or so, other than more holidays? Can I just say, how long had it been since you had a holiday, and now you've had, 2 or 3? You're about to have your 3rd in the time that you've been with us?
About to have our 3rd, and before that it was 19 years.
Wow.
So we're making up for it.
Hoorah!
What's next for us? Look, honestly, I think we're pretty good. We're pretty happy cruising along. I don't want to be a big, massive volume builder. Absolutely not. I don't even really want to be a mid-sized builder. I think that's where all the risk is in the industry at the moment. So I think we're happy with Shane, having relationships with the clients that we have. So for us, we're kind of just maintaining the status quo at the moment, doing some domestic renovations. And I think we'll sort of stick with this for a little while, maybe another 5 years, which will have all our apprentices trained and out the door. We might manage to renovate our own house, and then we can all retire rich and happy.
That sounds fantastic. Although being a fellow builder's wife, I question whether you'll get your own house done in the next 5 years. You never know.
5 years, it's already 15 years in the planning.
Every builder's wife I know is in the same position. Thank you, Lara. It was absolutely fantastic to have a chat with you today. I think if nothing else, listeners, please take out of this, there's hope for everybody when the opportunity arises to improve your business. And it doesn't need to be the struggle street that so many find ourselves in during business. Yeah. There is an opportunity for you to take even the resources. We have bunches of free resources over on Tradies and Business that will help you create better outcomes for your business. You don't have to pay a business coach to find what Lara and Shane have found. You can do a lot of that work on your own by listening to the podcast. There's the Tradies and Business podcast for the guys. If they're not into the Tradie Wife Life one, I probably would support them to go and listen to the Tradies and Business one. There's lots of resources that go along with those episodes as well that can really help you start to make those improvements for nothing. So please keep an ear out for webinars and things that we have coming up as well. Lara, thank thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure to chat with you. I think maybe Shane will even be happy with this episode. He certainly got a good rap.
He did get a good rap. He might listen to it. I don't know. He's not a podcast man. Maybe it might start his podcast.
Now we need to get him over on the Tradies and Business one, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. But that you need to allocate 4 hours.
It could be a long episode, especially if we get him and Warwick together on the one.
Oh my God.
Thank you, Lara. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Nick.